50 years since China's United Nations seat transferred from Taipei to Beijing. We look at how it's affected Taiwan's standing in the world. Another provocation. China and Russia join forces to sail through yet another Japanese strait.
I'm Hamioka, and here at World Cup Taiwan, where 18 different teams from 13 different countries will face off here on this football field.
He's been round this block many times. We clock the first Asian and Taiwanese to complete an unusual marathon in New York. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Ian Kavat. Monday marks 50 years since the passing of a UN Resolution 2758, which saw the China seat at the UN given to the People's Republic of China government in Beijing. But as the resolution turns 50, what impact has it had on Taiwan? James Chater reports.
It has an innocuous name, but its impact on Taiwan's international engagement has been enormous. So exactly what is UN Resolution 2758 and how has it affected Taiwan? The United Nations passed Resolution 2758 on October the 25th, 1971. It decided to restore all its rights to the People's Republic of China and to expel forthwith the representatives of Chiang Kai-shek from the place which they unlawfully occupy at the United Nations. In other words, that meant China would no longer be represented at the UN by the Republic of China government in Taipei, but by the People's Republic of China government in Beijing, in power since 1949. After the resolution, many countries moved quickly to break formal ties with Taiwan, countries like Japan, Australia and Brazil. And before the decade was over, even the United States has switched recognition to Beijing. Today, Taiwan has just 15 diplomatic allies. Since 1971, Taiwan has been unable to participate in the United Nations and UN bodies like the WHO. Taiwan citizens have even been banned from visiting UN buildings. As a result, analysts say the resolution is the root of Taiwan's diplomatic isolation.
Well, I think that over time, UN Resolution 2758 has eroded Taiwan's ability to participate in the international community. When the People's Republic of China was relatively weak, it still opposed Taiwan participating in the UN, but it didn't have the ability to rally a lot of countries to support it.
But as China's economic power grew, so too did its power to influence other nations to endorse its narrative concerning the resolution. So what is that narrative? Well, for Beijing, it's quite simple.
台湾作为中国的一个省，根本没有资格加入联合国。
Beijing holds that Taiwan is not a country and is therefore not eligible to participate in the organization. But experts say that the resolution is not about sovereignty, it's about representation. They argue that because neither the Republic of China nor Taiwan appear in the text of the 1971 decision, the resolution should not be used to bar Taiwan's participation in international organizations.
The resolution just says nothing about how or whether Taiwan can participate in the UN and in its agencies. So the hope is that countries will stand up to China, will push back and say, this resolution merely was about which government has credentials at the United Nations.
While its name may sound innocuous, the passing of UN Resolution 2758 would spell Taiwan's diplomatic fate for the following half-century. James Rayner and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about the legacy of Resolution 2758, our reporter Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick spoke with legal scholar Maggie Lewis. He began by asking what it says about Taiwan's role in international organizations.
The resolution is about the representation. It's not about participation. And it's certainly not about actually blocking physically even ROC passport holders from entering UN buildings. It's been taken to an extreme, I believe, in its interpretation. And it doesn't say anything about Taiwan's representation. In fact, it doesn't say Taiwan or the Republic of China. It does mention the representatives of Chiang Kai-shek, but that's the only mention of Taiwan or the ROC, even one step removed. So what does it say? It says that the China seat, that chair, in the UN that has the placard in front of it that says China, what that is where the PRC will now sit. So the People's Republic of China is to be the representative under the name of China within the United Nations.
China does regularly use Article 2758 to block Taiwan's participation, not only in the United Nations General Assembly, but in a whole host of UN and other international organizations. Do you think that this is a fair and accurate interpretation of the resolution?
I worry about using Resolution 2758 to give credence to the PRC government's narrative that it was a resolution that had anything to do with the sovereignty of this place where we are. That is an open question as far as what is the status internationally with respect to Taiwan. For the PRC government to keep trying to expand it out as a way to block Taiwan from having any, not just superficial, let alone meaningful participation in UN organizations and related bodies, I think that is really stretching the resolution beyond what any interpretation grounded in international law can support.
10 Chinese and Russian warships have transited a second narrow strait between Japanese islands in less than a week. The moves are part of the first joint Navy drills between the two countries in the Western Pacific. Over the weekend, Japanese media reported the sail-through of the southern Osumi Strait by Chinese and Russian destroyers and corvettes. It comes just days after another transit in the country's northern Tsugaru Strait. Both straits measure just 3 nautical miles across and are classed as international waters. Tokyo said these were the first ever transits of these waterways by Chinese and Russian ships. Moscow said the patrols were intended to maintain peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region and to safeguard the two countries' maritime economic interests. For more on this, I spoke to Colin Coe, a research fellow at the Institute of Defence and Strategic Studies at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies.
What was new this time around is that we have seen increased military interoperability between the two navies. We look at the exercises that included anti-submarine warfare, which is something that will usually be done between close partners. And that, of course, brings to question, the ongoing and enhancing strategic convergence between Moscow and Beijing when it comes to, the broader relationship towards the US and to Japan. So I think that these, long-standing strategic convergences that took place sometime around the early 2000s had somewhat borne fruit for the two nations, and therefore it is reflected in the more recent intensification of their military interactions, including, exercises on land and also missile defense command post exercises.
There seems to be a hardening of this line dividing, I guess, what we can call the authoritarian communist states from the more Western or democratic states.
I think based on the existing circumstantial developments, I think there is a somewhat apparent line that was drawn between, what we will call the democratic free world and the authoritarian set of nations. And in fact, if you look beyond, China and Russia, we have seen convergences between these two countries with other like-minded countries such as North Korea, and not to mention Iran. I think, just earlier, there was a joint exercise in the Persian Gulf area that took place involving the Chinese Navy, the Russian Navy, and the Iranian Navy. And I think that is a reflection of the growing strategic convergences between these countries, that reflects broadly their common understanding and common approach regarding how they view the world as it is, how it should be ordered. The so-called rules-based order, is a debatable term, and therefore this group of nations view it in a somewhat different manner from what, for example, the US and its allies have been viewing for a long while.
It's not easy for Taiwan to make friends in the international community. Opposition from China means that the country has only a few official diplomatic allies. But at World Cup Taiwan in New Taipei City this weekend, important relationships have been built through the beautiful game.
I'm at World Cup Taiwan, where 18 different teams from 13 different countries will face off in a mini tournament. And what sport am I talking about? Football.
They will soon start a match that symbolizes.
A lot of the players in this year's tournament are from Taiwan's 15 diplomatic allies, many of which are located in Latin America, where football reigns supreme. For the players, this year's tournament is more than just kicking a ball around a field.
The organizer of this event is Fernando Ramos. Now, he came to Taiwan to study Chinese, and like a lot of foreigners in Taiwan, he shares a love and a passion for football. He tells me that the event used to be called Copa America, but has since been changed to World Cup Taiwan.
His home team, Honduras, is one of the strongest in the tournament, and the country is a significant Central American ally for Taiwan.
When it originally started, we only have like 6 teams, which all came from like the Central American region and the Caribbean. But every year, we had more and more countries wanting to participate. So this year, around half of the participants that are in the competition come from different regions of the world. Like in Europe, we had participants from Africa last year. So I think that to reflect the diversity of the participant teams, it was important to change the name. It's also an opportunity for the world to see Taiwan.
One of the highlights this year is a match pitting government officials against diplomats. On one side is Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or MOFA, known for their strong defense in the international community. And on the other side, the diplomatic dream team, made up of representatives from allied nations. Off the field, they stand up for Taiwan in the international community. But on the pitch today, let's just say the relationship is a little more competitive. Willy Alberto Gomez Tirado is the Guatemalan ambassador to Taiwan, and he's the driving force behind the match, the first of its kind.
This is the most popular game in our country and in the region. But for us, it means unity, because you need to play it as a team. And the football also teaches you about resilience, because when you are lost in a game, you need to change your strategy or overcome the result.
That could also be a great metaphor for dealing with a global pandemic or making friends in the international community. In the end, the diplomatic dream team wins, 6-1. Even though his team had just been trounced, Vice Minister Alexander Yu is still upbeat.
Actually, we're thinking next year we will only play the first 2 minutes. Afterwards, we'll be all students from Fuda or Taita. No, we all had fun. The main thing was to have fun.
He says the match is a win for another important reason.
Now they're going to try to lift up all the restrictions. I think this game is part of the lifting up the restrictions. We will see more lifting up of restrictions, and people will be, we can go to restaurants now. So things we couldn't do a couple of months ago. But again, life is going back to normal, and we want to show the world of all the good things we've done here in containing the COVID-19.
So, who won the World Cup Taiwan tournament this year? Well, in the men's division, this year's champion is Haiti. They beat Honduras 3-1 to win the title.
New champion of the year, for the World Cup Taiwan 2021.
And in the women's division, Honduras came out on top. They beat Taiwan 2-1 in a nail-biting showdown.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the score is, or who wins or who loses. What matters is the people who are with you on and off the field. And maybe it's about the goals.
Damon Lin and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, we look at the impact of the biggest quake in Taiwan this year. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A reminder of our top story. Monday marks 50 years since the passing of UN Resolution 2758, which saw the China seat at the UN given to the People's Republic of China government in Beijing. It has shaped Taiwan's standing in the international community. Well, as we mentioned, a mini United Nations of sorts gathered in New Taipei City for the World Cup Taiwan. More than a dozen countries were represented at the annual event. TaiwanPlus was there and found that even the overcast skies and occasional rain couldn't dampen the players' spirits and solidarity.
It feels good to see all of these people from several countries gather in one place, and it doesn't matter actually the weather, it has nothing to do. We're here, we have the opportunities to play a great game and enjoy football overall.
Coming from Honduras, from a country that's very far away, and being here in Taiwan, it's very exciting to be playing together with all of my friends and having like a full gathering with all of the other team players from Central America.
The weather's great for UK players today. The rain, it's cold. Hopefully it gives us an advantage today. Yeah.
No, obviously it's a blessing. Not many people have this great opportunity to represent your country. For me, it's El Salvador, so I feel really happy to be part of this great team.
Now, on Sunday, there were swaying buildings, rock slides, and more than a few shaken residents as two powerful back-to-back earthquakes struck northeastern Taiwan. No deaths have been reported. TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt has more.
This was Hualien's Liu Lake as an earthquake struck on Sunday lunchtime, the biggest to hit Taiwan so far this year. Hualien and Yilan bore the brunt of the 6.5 magnitude quake, which was centered near Yilan. But the shakes were felt more than 200 kilometers away in the Penghu Islands in the Taiwan Strait. Seconds later, a 5.4 magnitude quake followed. In Taroko National Park in Hualien County, falling rocks injured one woman and slid onto roads, damaging at least one car. In Yilan's Jiaoxi Township, signs fell down, including a large billboard. Buildings swayed in the capital, Taipei. Books scattered on the floor of a library in New Taipei, while a water pipe ruptured in the city's Banqiao district, spraying water everywhere. A tower crane working on a high-rise building in New Taipei City's Xinzhuang district ended up bent to almost 90 degrees, creating a terrifying sight. Across northern Taiwan, the quake disrupted a quiet Sunday. Trains and metros were temporarily suspended for safety checks. The Central Weather Bureau says aftershocks are expected over the next 3 days. Karma Xu and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
58-year-old Taiwanese ultra-marathon runner Luo Meiming has completed the world's longest foot race in New York. He is the first Asian to complete the race, and he also finished in second place among the 7 runners taking on this unusual competition. TaiwanPlus reporter Andrew Ryan has more.
It took ultramarathon runner Luo Weiming 48 days to cross the finish line, marking 5,000 arduous kilometers. Holding up the national flag of Taiwan, the moment caps a race that began on September 5th and completed on Sunday, October 24th. To win the self-transcendence 3,100-mile race, runners have to push through thousands of laps in the same city block in Queens, New York. They pound the pavement every day until midnight, taking breaks as needed. They have to get in at least 96 kilometers a day, as they have a maximum of 52 days to complete the challenge. Luo captured attention by running half of the race wearing his Made in Taiwan flip-flops. At the finish line, Luo fights back the tears.
感谢大家能够那么多人来看着我们这场赛事，而且得到我们的台湾很多的跑友或是人民的认同，这是也是料想不到的事情。
He may have finished the race 6 days after the winner, but for 58-year-old Luo Weiming, it's a sweet second-place victory. Asnaya Zhou, Peachy Zhuang, and Andrew Ryan for TaiwanPlus.
Now, the Wang Ye Boat Burning Festival is underway in southern Taiwan's Donggan Township. The religious celebration takes place once every 3 years and runs for 8 days. The festival usually attracts tens of thousands of visitors. Fittingly, in the time of coronavirus, the celebration honors deities that ward off plagues. The highlight of the festival is the burning of a giant Chinese junk on the beach as a send-off to the gods. In Taiwan, paper lanterns can be seen in many places, especially during festivals. In this story, a master lantern maker sheds light on how he is passing down his craft to the next generation.
我讲哦，应拢就差不多是手电架啦。啊，花灯就是讲将物体、将物件甲固做顶，或做花灯。啊，细汉就看人安尼咧固花灯咯啥吼，部分就去咧做个手工的嘛。啊，看到会晓啊，人咧固花灯，迄阵做老咧咧啊，迄阵的生意较好做。 是较路边手，生意无做，无去有功夫啊，无去有苦纸啦。啊，天伦，会使讲天伦啦。别个我嘛会晓做，捌我嘛会晓做，看到差不多知影啦。
元宵节，照我国的习俗是以花灯来点缀，所以又叫做灯节。
细汉的时阵。 四月庙嘛，花灯啊，四社门的庙就结花灯啊。是公国了后，敢若上庙有花灯来尔，算个无。固花灯就上头一个就是爱光，这个骨的材料。伊只物件会先久先拗起来，啊再来生骹、洗手、水安尼个。 啊，内面牵着个就是放伫这内面的要拄的骨。敢若讲手工的物件要趁侪钱才学。 有这物件是下着，啊拄着时机就好，会晓的人拄着时机哦就好啦。啊，无拄着时机哦，艺术的逐项就无好用嘛。发生的代志来搞水灯，迄嘛花灯，毋是讲干那物体来搞就是花灯啦。故事来搞水灯，嘛是花灯。 我上爱可怜啦、风啦，啊甲吉林啦，啊我要甲好做人间三奇啊。我的古镇里面的吼，看这足多啦，所以不同的代志就是古镇出来表现咱安尼啊。 人的人生哦，即马讲的话，后代的人嘛听袂着啊。哦，咱若人生无意思哦，看到这个物件，人才有法度人回忆讲哦，古早的人，这是流传嘛。留一个遗物互迄后代的人，才看会着安尼。哦，我感觉足欢喜。
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Ian Kavat. We leave you with some images of flocks of sheep taking over central Madrid during their annual migration. Check out the TaiwanPlus News app, YouTube and website for this show and more. Stay safe and see you next time.